down when I come back so I don't scare people. Because I have heard that that happens. All right. Want to do Tome of the GM. Week number 2. Going through your Reddit questions. If you guys have questions that you want to put in the chat or campaigns or anything like that, feel free to do that. But we will go through questions that I found on Reddit. I have selected these and went through, and just so you know, I pre-typed out my answers to them, but I will go through them with you as well. DM skipped my turn because I rolled a nat 1 on initiative, says it's fun, quote unquote. This is from K for Supper. So just from the headline, I can tell that the player is a little bit annoyed, and I do understand that. Let's dive in a little bit. This is my second ever campaign, and it's only the second session, so maybe I don't understand something. But basically, me and one other player rolled nat 1 when rolling for initiative. I looked it up, and according to the rules as written, be careful with that. According to the rules as written, that doesn't mean that we should lose a turn, but the DM skipped us both anyways. I did find that it's a homebrew rule, but he never told us he's doing any homebrew. He just kept saying it's standard 2025 rules. 2024 is the new system. And I don't know if that's in the new system, but I know it's not in 2014. When I asked him why we got skipped, he replied with the first rule of D&D is to have fun. So obviously every DM homebrews a little here and there. Now I may be missing something, but I can't see how this is supposed to be fun that I did not get to play on my turn. It especially stung because I had already planned out my entire turn in detail with a backup plan in case I rolled bad, just for it to get skipped. I didn't argue because I have horrible anxiety and was feeling terrible at the time. But anyway, what do you guys think about this? Am I overreacting? Is the rule fun or not? Who is in the right here? I'm just feeling a little bit confused about all of this. Edit. I feel like I should say that this was only the first turn and that I was the only player surprised or upset by the rule, and that the DM explained that it goes both ways and applies to enemies as well, which I still didn't really prefer, but seeing as all the other players liked the rule, I didn't push it. Later, I also talked to the DM on the forum because that was right after a session. Again, everybody but me thought it was a good rule and that going last could be an advantage, even though I only got to do like a third of what I originally planned out. And he even contacted me after the session asking if there was something else I didn't enjoy about the session. And then there's a TLDR. So what I'd say here is my first answer will be from the DM standpoint. My second answer will be from the player standpoint. From the DM standpoint, could it be a fun rule? Yes. There's not really a mechanic for your players getting surprised. And so the only way that you can really do that is just by DMing it and saying you get surprised. Roll a perception check, you didn't make it, you get surprised. I wouldn't do it without giving them a roll. But if you really had to railroad it, I would understand you saying like, sorry, there's a surprise round here. To only do it to one player is kind of singled out, and especially a new player, it's going to make them feel, well, like this player felt. And so I'd be really careful about doing that. The only way that I would do that is if I made it clear before character creation that this was going to be a homebrew rule I put in. And the reason that I say before character creation is if you're going to do that, it makes things like the alert feat worth more. Because if you can roll a 1 on initiative and get skipped in a turn, it might be worth it to somebody to take the alert feat. The alert feat has, I think, slightly different writings in 14 and 24. But essentially, you can't get surprised. And so I would say, hey, listen, we're going to do this on initiative. If you roll a 1, I'm going to say that you were surprised and it'll skip your turn. Unless you have something that says you can't be surprised. And those things are the alert feat, and I think there's a weapon of warning that you can take that is modeled after like Frodo's sting weapon. It glows when someone's nearby, and so you can't be surprised. There's a few magic items that say that right in there. And so those magic items become worth more, and the feat becomes worth more because you don't ever lose a turn if you roll a nat 1 on initiative. But it would be something that I'd want to outline pre-character creation. What this sounds like to me is that the DM is used to punishing nat 1s, which is fine. That's a normal thing at a table. And it's probably why all the other players were okay with it. But it sounds like the DM just kind of made a ruling on the spot. And what I don't like about what they did is that they tried to double down on it and just say, oh, well, that's standard 2025 rules. When you do that and you just outright lie, you can hear it in this player's tone, right? They feel betrayed because it's not in the rules. And so it just feels like you're just making stuff up to make their life harder. And we're all at the table to have fun. You know what I mean? That's the goal for all of us. It's the goal for the DM. It's the goal for the player. And so I can understand how the player feels a little bit targeted and a little bit, I don't know, disenfranchised. And I think the reason is just because the way that the DM handled it. And so eventually the DM broke down and said, oh, it's just homebrew rules. Everybody uses homebrew here and there. And that's true. Every DM has rules that they think are stupid and they don't adhere to them. I'm trying to think of what some of mine would be. I think it's stupid that you don't have flanking, but they've added that back in. You can't be facing all directions at all times. So if you're facing one person and you get hit with an attack from behind, they're going to have a better chance to hit you than the person who you're facing. But getting into facing rules like they had in 4E is incredibly tedious. So what's the easiest way to do that? Flanking. You get advantage on your attack if you're flanking with another creature. Okay. Easy, you know? So every DM has rules that they think are stupid and that they put their own homebrew rules in. He's right about that. And he's also right that the first rule of DMing and the first rule of D&D is to have fun. But it's not fun for the player when you take away their agency, when they don't get to do the thing that they rightfully think that they should be able to do, and you just skip them. And because they're already being punished by going last, which the other players in the DM are right, it can be an advantage to go last. But the other thing that you're not noticing when you let them go last is that you're letting everybody have 2 turns before they go. Because not only are you putting them, saying that they have a surprise round, but you're also putting them at the bottom of initiative. So you go through an entire turn, you skip them, and then you go through another entire turn. And it's a good way to get, especially a new player, just to disconnect and not be paying attention. And now they're just stewing on the thing that they're angry about and what happened. So I understand what you're saying. What I would say is, if you're surprised, you act first at the beginning of the next round. Or if you're surprised, you act, but not until the very end of the first round. And so there are advantages people can get on you if you are a surprised creature. There's also language in D&D that says if they haven't taken a turn in combat yet, and all of those things would apply to you because you have the condition of surprised. But if you just take away their turn and make them sit at the table and watch everybody else play D&D, yeah, it's going to rub them the wrong way. So I don't necessarily have a problem with the ruling. You rolled in that one on initiative, your punishment is that you're surprised. I have a little bit of an issue with the application, but like the other players at the table, I would say I think it's fine as long as it's on both sides. So if you roll a nat 1, then your monsters are also surprised. The problems with it, I think, are I would want that said early before character creation. And then the other problem is, and I didn't put this in the answer I typed out, but the other problem is very rarely do DMs roll initiative for each of their creatures. If they have a pack of goblins, they roll 1 initiative for that pack of goblins, where the players have to roll their own initiative every single time. So if I'm making 1 roll and they're making 6 rolls, who's more likely to roll a 1? They are. Right? So if you're going to punish a nat 1 on initiative like this, you have to roll each of your character's initiatives separately to make it fair, to give you your monsters as much of a chance of rolling a nat 1 as the players have. And so I highly doubt this DM did that, which also is going to make it feel like that rule is made to give the DM a little bit of joy and punish the players a little bit. So I'm not happy with how he applied the rule, and then I'm not happy with what he did after there was a dispute about it at the table. Maybe they misunderstood, when they said it was standard 2025 rules. This is only from one perspective, so it's hard for me to say without hearing the DM side of it. But you get the sense that the DM tried to sweep it under the rug of like, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it. And like, no, you need to address it and make sure that your player doesn't feel slighted by the ruling that you made. So that's my thought on it. I'm glad the DM reached back out to them after the session, asking if there was anything else. I think that's good DMing. If you can see your player is visibly upset with a ruling or something that happens at the table, to reach out to them, I think is important. You're going to make rulings that upset people. It's going to happen. But if you do, just be honest about it. Like, don't say it's in the standard 2025 rules. First of all, there are no 2025 rules. It's 2024 or 5.5. And second of all, it's not in there. So you can make a mistake and say, I thought it was in there, but it's not. And you couldn't, and I don't even know, because I would need to read through and be sure. But it might be under one of the alternate rules, because they put all kinds of alternate rules in there now that say, here are other things that you can do. So under the alternate rules might be that a nat 1 is surprised. I'm not sure. But either show it to them where it is in the rules, or don't lie and say that it's in the rules when it's not. And if you were confused and you thought it was in the rules and it's not, then you have to go to the player and have a mea culpa and say, sorry, I thought that was something in the rules. It's not. It's a homebrew. It's a rule that I like, so it's going to be a homebrew rule. Now you know that going forward. So that is essentially what I wrote back to them here. This to me, this to me is a DM making a call in the moment, it being a mistake, and then them doubling down because they don't want to look foolish, right? And that is the fastest way to lose the confidence of your players. The rule isn't an overly awful one, but something that should be noted before the campaign starts. It certainly shouldn't be a surprise when you roll the 1. This is the type of house rule that makes the difference all the way back to character creation. It may change how people build things, as tools. Like the alert feat might come in, might be more enticing to take. If the rule is established ahead of time and applied to all, I'd say fun home rule. The way you make it sounds like the DM just made a quick call. DMs make mistakes, and though the rule doesn't sound bad, the way it applied it does. So maybe just talk to them about the adjudication one-on-one. And I would. I mean, if I was the player and you felt so strongly about it that you came to a Reddit thread to talk about it, it's something that I would talk to the DM about one-on-one. So, all right, next one here. Advice needed from Fun Radish. 7610. I like Fun Radish. Okay, here we go. I have a player who keeps refusing to elaborate on his backstory, tries to be the main character, and at the end of my last session took up 40 minutes straight of roleplay on his own, attempting to force his backstory into an already established lore of the world, but contradicting it. I enjoy writing lore of worlds and having others piece it together, which is why I DM. Feel that? I think most DMs do. And I always work with my player to make sure their backstory fits into the world I've created so we can all feel more connected. When we did the player creation and his backstory, his backstory was that he had memory loss and woke up in an ancient library where he studied magic, and then ventured forth to discover more about magic and his people. He said that he had no idea what happened to his people or how the character ended up there, and left it up to me to fill in the gaps, which, by the way, is a great backstory. Fine. And I've told players before, even if you just write me a sentence or two, that's fine. If the sentence that you write me is like, I have no memory, you can make it all up, totally fine. Some people aren't into writing their backstory. Some people love it and will write 15 pages, but you know what I mean? That's a fine backstory, but he has to then live with the consequences of the DM creating it, and I think that's where the problem comes in here. At the end of the last session, closing out with lore and RP, he took the spotlight. He began questioning an NPC about the library he woke up in and about where he came from. The NPC was telling him that he doesn't know much about his people, but the library was likely a place called the Archives. He then continued to ask the same question, threatening this NPC, which has been traveling with the party since the start of the campaign, sure that he was lying. One of my players decided to cast Zone of Truth so the NPC couldn't lie. Only then did he believe him. He then went on a speech about how he doesn't have memory loss. He knows what happened to his parents, and his father left him a note saying he was the chosen one. We were missing quite a few players during all this, so I've told them that we are going to redo the RP so that everyone is caught up. But how do I go about getting this player to let me know about their backstory and tell him that the other players believe that he's that he's trying to be the main character? I haven't had a conversation with a controversial player, and before I do, I'd like to know the best way to go about it. So there's two things to say about this. Every player wants to be a main character. That's okay. That's what D&D is for. You can't have them steal the spotlight, though, from other people at the table by not listening to you. You create the world. You create the rules. And I think one of the main things that people have trouble with as new DMs is being a leader. You have to be a leader here. This is your game. This is your table, and you're responsible for everybody there having fun, not just this one guy. So the first thing I'd say is require the backstory. He doesn't get to play unless he gives you his backstory. Now, if he wants to tell you, okay, here's my backstory, but I don't want other NPCs to know it, and I don't want the player characters to know it yet. Okay, that's fine. But you need to tell me because I'm building the world. That'd be the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is everybody's mother thinks they're special. So what? Your father left you a note saying that you're the chosen one? Chosen for what? To shovel shit next door? This is my world, not yours. So you can act like you are the main character. You can be the chosen one, but chosen for what and by whom? Now, if you want to give me the full backstory, I think it's good, and I put it into the lore of my world, then fine. Maybe I can make you the chosen one. But you don't just get to say, I'm the leader of the free world, or whatever it is your main character is trying to say. 40 minutes of RP is tough. I'm sure the others... what level is Zone of Truth? Let me look that up. Because it feels like this is maybe a little bit later in the campaign if they're casting Zone of Truth. What level is it? Second level? Okay. Well, I guess you could still be a fairly new campaign and be in that situation. So, I would require the backstory. I would tell them, everybody's mother thinks they're special. It doesn't mean that you are. And that's in game. Out of game, I would say you need to put your foot down because players who exhibit this kind of behavior can grow very tedious on a group very fast. If they're constantly the one that's just ramrodding themselves as the main character down everybody's throat and they do what they want to do, it can make for a really boring table for everybody else. And it made me think of Critical Role Season 1 and the character who just happens not to be around anymore. So Tiberius Stormwind was his name, and it's a great example of a character trying so hard to make it about themselves and be the everything and do everything that it sucks the fun out of the group. And, they've never talked about what happened with Tiberius, but they told him they couldn't play anymore. And you need to make sure that this character with main character syndrome doesn't get to that point. Not saying that they're there now, but you need to put your foot down so it doesn't turn into that kind of problem, and establish that you are the DM, you make the rules, this is your world, and they have to listen to you. So I said require the backstory. You build the world, you run the table. This sounds like a player who, if you let them get away with this, will continue this kind of main character energy. To be fair, nothing wrong with the player wanting to be the main character, but it shouldn't be at the expense of all the work the DM puts in or the others at the table. Put your foot down to correct a small problem now so it doesn't become a bigger one. And then I reference Critical Role. See Tiberius Stormwind in Season 1 of Critical Role for how this can go bad. And, it was him popping out this item where he could build magical items and, handle all the RP, and he's the prince of a blah, blah, blah. And, well, that doesn't apply to me. And it was bad. It was tough to watch. I said also in practice, also make sure that you are helpful. Tell them that they don't want NPCs or the party to... In practice, also make sure that you are helpful. Tell them that if they don't want the NPCs or the party to know much about them, that's fine. But you need to know so you can build the world. So when you have a main character like this, I think it's important to work with them to try to scratch their itch, but also to kind of assert your dominance and make sure that they're not running away with things too much. So let's add that in. So that's my advice there. Sideshow Paradox. That is where most of the game go wrong. I felt like we became DM versus player. Yeah. DM versus player is what you want to avoid, which is not good. I did cause problems myself, which got worse as the game went on, which was my fault as theirs. Yeah, listen, you have to be... It's really an interesting balance to strike, and it's with leadership in general, not just with DMing. But you have to strike a fine balance between putting your foot down and making sure that there is some control at the table to make sure everybody's having fun. You are the leader. You are that control. But you also don't want to become adversarial with your players. If it gets to a spot where it's the players versus the DM, it's how campaigns die. It can get really ugly. So you don't want to do that. Okay, next. What to do with a free 4 hours? I have a racial ability that my character takes a long rest in 4 hours. You're an elf. Given the other party members take 8, and I don't want to make the group sit through me mini adventure every time. My character has 4 free hours. What would you recommend I do during these four free hours? Role play things aside, I would like those hours to be functionally useful without taking up too much RP time. It's a great question. It's something that I did with one of my players, and I loved it, and I would always recommend this at the table, but I've only run it once. But I would say that this is maybe my favorite answer. Learn a skill, tool, or a language in your downtime. I had a player roll a d20 every night to practice learning Elvish. It was an int roll. If they got over 10, they got 1%. If they got under 10, they didn't get a percentage point towards learning the language. Crits were worth even more. They kept track of the percentage of the language that they could speak. At 30%, I said that they could communicate ideas. At 50%, speak it brokenly. At 80%, they could have conversations, and 100% was fluid. You could do this with languages, tools, kits, instruments, skills. It doesn't take up any time at the table in terms of role play, and it's just a role, but it can be useful and helpful to you in game. Check with your DM. I had a lot of fun with that. He kept track of it every time, and he had to remember to do it. Just like if you were home on a Saturday, you have to remember to study your Elvish. But, he ended up getting to, I think it was like 35%. So I said that he could kind of brokenly communicate ideas with people. But, if your DM would let you do that to become proficient in a skill or a language or a tool or a kit or an instrument, it can have an impact on the game, but is just a quick roll that you make and doesn't require any role play. I also said that if he had somebody, and I should put this in there, if he had somebody that knew Elvish sitting there with him, that he could have advantage on the rolls. So I think that's a cool way to possibly get yourself an extra skill or language or something like that. That makes those 4 hours useful, but isn't necessarily taking up time at the table. Okay, what's next? Module campaign character. Oh, by the way, let's give a shout out to whoever that was. That was Chaos Mightier with that question on Reddit. This is Wrathful 1377, module campaign, character, backstories, and goals. I could use some advice on setting expectations for an upcoming campaign. I've been building my own homebrew world and setting for a while. The lore is something I'm very proud of, but I admit it can be quite dense and a bit intimidating for new players to approach right out of the gate. To help ease my players into the world, I've decided to adapt the Lost Mine of Phandelver module to fit within my setting. My hope is that the familiar structure, clear goals, and reliable pacing of the module will act as a good anchor while they learn about the wider world. Here's where I'm running into a roadblock. I normally run much bigger open world sandbox campaigns. This will be my very first time running a standalone structured module. I'm the same way. Because Lost Mines of Phandelver is relatively short and focused, I want to strike the right balance during character creation. My main question is, how much character backstory and or personal goals should I be looking for from potential players? I want them to feel grounded in my homebrew world, but I also don't want them writing 10-page epics for a focused adventure, nor do I want personal quests completely derailing the pace of the module. Any advice on balancing deep homebrew lore with a structured module, or tips on what to ask during session 0 would be hugely appreciated. And I said it here, the first thing I'd say is some of your players are going to write 10 pages. It's just what... you like building the lore of the world. Some people just like writing 10 pages about their character. Let them. Don't take away their joy. Let them have fun. If that's what they enjoy doing, let them do it. The thing I tell players that do that, and what I often say to people is, just make sure that I'm not going to use all 10 pages. You can write it. You can have fun. I'll read it. I'll tell you my thoughts on it if you want to know. But just know that I'm going to go through and pick out specific things that I want to use to connect your backstory to my world, and let them know that before they write the 10 pages so they don't feel like they wasted a bunch of time. And then if they want to write it anyway, let them write it anyway. I mean, what does it matter? You know what I mean? I would say that at character creation, ask for the full backstory. But it doesn't mean you need to tie it into Lost Mines of Phandelver. Like, that module will run itself. But as you're running that module, you can find ways to introduce elements of their backstory and link it to the wider world. And that would be my quick answer to that. If you know what threads you want to pull on from their backstory, you should be able to weave it in during, I think it's like a 4-session module for Lost Mines of Phandelver, depending on how much time you spend, 2 to 4 sessions. So, if you run that, the module has very clearly defined goals. They can be strangers or whatever to each other. And then you just have to find ways to take pieces of the backstory and weave it in as they're completing Lost Mines of Phandelver so they have somewhere to go afterwards. But I would ask for the full backstory and just pick and choose what you want. So I said some of your players are going to write 10 pages. That's okay. Don't take away their joy. Let them have their fun. Just make sure that they know that you won't use all 10 pages. But just like you liked building your homebrewed world, they might like writing their lore. That said, I don't think you need a way to force them into doing their task for Lost Mines of Phandelver. The module runs itself. But while you're running it, you can pick threads from their backstory and try to attach them to your homebrew world as the module progresses. Things that you choose to pull from the backstory, and not the entirety of it. And I think this sounds like a really competent DM. I'm going to be honest with you. I may be wrong, but it sounds like a competent DM. And so it sounds like somebody who's more inside their own head than they need to be. They sound like somebody who's concerned about, overly concerned about making this epic storyline when they are probably doing enough without worrying about that. It's always the people who are worried about it, who, because you're thinking about it, you do a good job of it. So I would say just run the module, make sure that you're putting hints and clues and secrets and threads from your homebrew world into Lost Mines of Phandelver as you're running it. But then, when it's over, just transition to your campaign. You'll be able to do it. Okay, last one here. Decision paralysis. Hey, I've DM'd before, usually one-shots or preset settings. I've made a world, but I think I've made it too big, and now I'm having paralysis on where to start and what kind of story to tell, or screw it. Or screw it. He's got an extra if in there. Or screw it. I should just start a new world. Does anyone have advice on sitting down and sticking to one idea? I wrote, pick one location, pick one person, build your story. Steal plot lines if you must, but don't move out of your own world. It's that work that you've done, that depth of knowledge of the setting will make your world feel real to your players. I want to add something to this. Okay, so this, to me, another DM that sounds like he's in his own head. If you built the whole world already, you're good to go, man. Like, that's the most important part to me. If you have your entire setting built, it's going to feel a lot richer and fuller when the people are interacting with that world, because anything that they ask about, you're going to have an answer for. It's going to feel a lot more like real life. So I absolutely don't think you should start a new world and start over. Just pick one location, pick one person, and build your story. This can be where the player's backstory fits best into your world. Pick an endpoint. They want to fight a dragon. Pick a villain, the dragon. Decide how the villain will accomplish its goals. Remember, every villain is justified in their own mind. Then work backwards to give them attainable goals like killing a lieutenant midway through or items or secrets they need. Then you have your framework and can build in detail the first couple of, I said settings, I meant sessions. Steal plot lines for the motivations of your villain if you must, but don't move out of your world. It's the work that you've done, that depth and knowledge of the setting, that will make your world feel real to your players. So I'm a homebrew world kind of guy, but like if you're going to run something in Eberron or Faerun or whatever, just know it really well. So when somebody says like, oh, well, where would I go if I was trying to find the clerics of Maliki? You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay, well, probably a forest town. So Worms Crossing, I think, is one of them, right? So let's go to Worms Crossing and see if they know where to find clerics of Maliki. But you have to know the setting to be able to say that to them. So I like homebrew worlds because if you built the whole thing, then you know where that is. And it makes the world feel richer and fuller when people are talking to you about it. So absolutely, I would not tell this person to start a new world or get rid of it. The fact that you have so much is a good thing, not a bad thing. Just need to pick one location and one person to focus on. What is that person's motivation? Are they even a villain? What is that person's motivation, and why do the characters care about stopping them? That's all. That's all it comes down to. And you can do that in any location, but I think the easiest way to do that is ask the characters for their backstory and then build it around that. The easiest way to build it around it is put them in your world where it makes most sense for their backstory to happen. So I had talked about my old campaign earlier when we were talking about GM prepping. 2 of them were elves. So I put them where the elves are in my world, in the elven homeland. And it just made sense to start there because that's what they wanted to do. And so that's where I built my storyline from. That's how I picked my location and picked their person. And then I built a story from that. I think, like I said, when we were talking about GM prep, the most important thing, and by the way, if you're watching this on VOD, the GM prep should be up as well. If this one is up, the GM prep should already be up. You can go back and watch that video. But I think the most important thing is to give them attainable goals along the way. And so, in this example, I said they want to fight a dragon. You pick the villain, a dragon. Well, they're not going to be able to fight a dragon right away. So you have to give them stuff that they can accomplish along the way, including fighting a lieutenant or finding out secrets or getting magic items or gaining allies. You have to give them those things to do along the road so it feels like they're accomplishing something. So, same thing as the past couple of DMs, feels like in their own head. And generally that means that they're going to be just fine. Don't worry too much about it. Start building it. And remember, it's a collaborative storytelling process. You know what I mean? So start telling the story and have your players help you. And at the beginning, that's asking for their backstory. And then you kind of go through and you put it all together and write your story. At the table, it's you coming with a general idea, a basic plot line, and them, interacting with it. And that's how you guys tell a story together. So don't forget, you're not doing this by yourself. Your players will help push along your storyline and reveal things that are going to be important to the campaign that you didn't even know that were going to be involved. So it's a good, easy way to have it kind of be something that they care about is because they came up with it. So that would be my suggestion. But like I said, I think this DM is going to do fine. Paralysis by analysis is very right. So, okay. So that is Tome of the GM. Thank you everybody for watching. We do different topics on the stream every week. Mondays are sports. Tuesdays are Eve. Wednesdays are D&D. Thursdays are sports. And Fridays are free-for-all. But if you liked our D&D content, you can come back and join us on Wednesdays, or you can find us with the videos on demand at Rob T Radio on YouTube. So that is it for Tome of the GM this week.